LinkedIn presents.
Good morning. I'm Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, where we bring you key insights from some of today's smartest nonfiction writers. Today, that writer is psychiatrist Rami Kaminski, author of the new book, The Gift of Not Belonging: How Outsiders Thrive in a World of Joiners. If you've ever found yourself struggling to find your tribe or fit in with others, this one could be for you. In the book, Rami introduces the concept of the outrovert, someone who doesn't turn inward like an introvert or outward like an extrovert, but elsewhere. Rami's here to explain right after this quick break.
From LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, host of Everyday Better, an award-winning podcast dedicated to personal development. Join me every week for captivating stories and research to find more fulfillment in your work and personal life. Listen to Everyday Better on the LinkedIn Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, my name is Dr. Rami Kaminski. I'm a psychiatrist practicing in New York City, and I would like to share with you some insights from my book, The Gift of Not Belonging. The myth of belonging. We are taught from childhood that belonging is essential. We're told to find our people, our tribe, our circle, to seek belonging as the only route to happiness. But what if that's not true for everyone? For some, belonging is not a destination. It's a dissonance. As a psychiatrist, I've met countless people who are successful, loved, even admired, and yet they carry this constant question. Why do I feel like an outsider in every room I walk into? It's not because they're anxious about fitting in. It's not because they've been excluded. It's because they don't feel the group pull that most people do. Sadly, instead of seeing that as a natural variation, we pathologize it. We assume everyone can belong, and if they don't, we treat it like a problem to fix. In my writing, I talk about the difference between herd behavior and hive behavior. Herds protect us from physical danger, but hives, groups with shared beliefs, ideologies, and rituals, protect us from existential loneliness. They offer a comforting echo. You are one of us. But that comfort comes at a cost. You must accept the hive's logic, even when it makes no sense. You must believe in order to belong. Many people do this seamlessly, but others feel the discomfort immediately. They see the circular reasoning of the hive for what it is. We believe this because everyone else does. Most people accept the group they're born into without question. Its politics, its religion, its customs, but some don't. Some feel estranged from the very beginning. They don't rebel outwardly, but they resist inwardly. They are observers instead of participants. They connect, but don't belong. The book challenges the assumption that belonging is an innate instinct. Not everyone feels safer inside the circle. For some, the constant pressure to blend in leads to chronic, invisible exhaustion. They learn to fake belonging, but it never feels real. And here's the problem. We turn this difference into a deficiency. We tell the child who prefers alone time that they need to socialize more. We ask the adult who doesn't enjoy groupthink to be a team player. We reward mimicry over authenticity. But maybe belonging isn't a problem to be solved. Maybe it's a clue, pointing us towards another way of being, one that values observation over assimilation, inner truth over conformity. Not belonging can hurt, but that hurt doesn't always mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means something in you is awake. What is an outrovert? We all know the term introvert and extrovert. We use them to describe how we relate to people, how we gain energy, how we interact socially, how we navigate the world. But in my work as a psychiatrist, I began to notice a third kind of person, someone who didn't quite fit in either label. They weren't shy or socially anxious. In fact, many were articulate, charismatic, and well-liked. They could lead meetings, speak on stage, or host gatherings with ease. However, no matter how successful they seemed within groups, there was one consistent thread. They never truly felt they belonged to any group, regardless of how warm the welcome. I call them otroverts. From otro, the Spanish word for other, and vertere, Latin for to turn. Otroverts are people who turn in a different direction. Not inward like introverts, not outwards like extroverts, but elsewhere. They turn towards something else entirely. Independence, clarity, and observation. In the book, I describe how otroverts often feel like actors playing a role. They know how to engage, but never fully inhabit the group's identity. They might wear the uniform, speak the language, even enjoy parts of it, but something in them remains unclaimed. They move through the group, but they don't dissolve into it. This is where the confusion often arises. We assume that someone who doesn't seem to join in must be aloof or disconnected. But non-belongers are often intensely connected to individuals, causes, to nature. They resist absorption in order to maintain emotional autonomy. Otroverts don't thrive in echo chambers. They don't mirror others reflexively. Instead, they reflect deliberately. And in a culture that often equates sameness with confidence, that trait can be misunderstood. But if we listen more carefully, we begin to appreciate that there is clarity in their distance. We realize an otrovert's non-belonging isn't a flaw in the design. It's a design of its own. Connection is not belonging. One of the biggest misunderstandings about otroverts is that they struggle to connect, that not belonging equates being cold or distant, that they prefer detachment to intimacy. But this couldn't be further from the truth. In The Gift of Not Belonging, I describe how many otroverts possess profound emotional depth. They often form one-on-one relationships that are more intimate and more authentic than those formed through traditional group bonding. They are often the people others turn to in moments of real vulnerability because they don't offer platitudes or tribal slogans. They offer presence and honesty. Their loyalty is deep because the emotional needs of the group do not dilute it. The key is understanding that connection is not the same as belonging. Belonging often requires a kind of merger. To suppress our individuality for the sake of the group, you adopt the language, the symbols, the shared beliefs of a group. You take on its tone. You belong by blending. A group's safety is gained by conforming. Otroverts connect differently. They don't need to share group identity to feel close to someone. In fact, they often connect better outside the group precisely because there's no need to perform. One can just be. They feel most alive when the masks come off, when the conversation moves beyond predictable affirmations. They're averse to social theater, and in a world where so much interaction is performative, especially online, this aversion becomes a kind of superpower. In the book, I discuss how otroverts thrive outside the logic of the hive. They don't need consensus to feel close to someone. They don't need a shared identity, ideology, or common enemy. What they need is authenticity. This is why introverts often become confidants. People trust them, not because they say the right things, but because they don't. They don't offer prepackaged empathy. They don't pretend to belong to your world just to comfort you. They meet you where you are, not where the group is. You can connect authentically without the need to be someone you're not. When we assume that connection must mean belonging, we create environments where people feel forced to choose. Either join the group fully or be considered as disconnected. Introverts show us another path. They remind us that intimacy doesn't require immersion, that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen outside the circle. The high cost of forced belonging. From an early age, we try to mold people into group participants. We put children in teams, camps, clubs. We reward group enthusiasm. We praise the joiners. The message is subtle, but clear. Who you are isn't enough. You need to be more like everyone else. However, forced belonging is not benign. The price of forced belonging, even if successful, is self-abandonment. You must be pulled out of yourself to merge with the group. And that robs introverts of their most major life asset, their individuality. The children learn to mask. The adult learns to pretend. Over time, they lose touch with their inner compass. They perform at school, work, and home, but it never feels real. Over time, many master their social performance. The adult version of the introvert child learns to blend in and work, to network at events, to make small talk at dinners. But beneath the surface, a question lingers. Why doesn't any of this feel like me? What introverts need is not more social exposure. They need permission to build their lives around their nature. And when we fail to offer that permission, we risk damaging the very essence that makes this individual so quietly powerful, their ability to think independently, to reflect deeply, to see what others miss. Because belonging can be conditioned, but cannot be forced. And when we try, we create a destructive conflict in those who cannot belong. And that conflict is far more damaging than any solitude could ever be. The gift of not belonging. So what happens when an introvert stops trying to belong? When they stop pretending? Something radical and liberating. They reclaim their energy. They stop wasting it on performance. They stop rehearsing, adapting, and pleasing. Their mind sharpens, their body settles. They begin to create, to reflect, to build, not for applause, but for their own meaning. In the book, I describe how many introverts go on to become artists, prominent thinkers, inventors, and founders. Once they release the burden of fitting in, they go on to become extraordinary contributors. They finally have space to think their own thoughts. Not belonging frees you from the tides of consensus. The gift of not belonging is a gift of perspective. When you are not inside the group, you can recognize patterns, blind spots, and inherited beliefs. It allows you to love people deeply without absorbing the group logic. It lets you think freely. You can remain whole. The gift is a life that is not shaped by group demands, but by your own vision. A life of chosen commitments, not inherited scripts. And perhaps most importantly, it's a life of integrity. In the gift of not belonging, I say, in a world obsessed with joining, introverts remind us that sometimes the most courageous act is to embrace the freedom to walk alone. This isn't a rejection of others. It's a deep honoring of the self. It's an invitation to live from the inside out. And for those who have always felt like the outsider, the satellite, the watcher, the lone thread in a tightly woven fabric. This is your permission. Not to fix yourself, not to blend in, but to recognize that your difference is not a detour from connection. It's a different road to it. Thank you very much for listening. I hope those insights resonate with you, whether you are an introvert or not. After all, there is a benefit from considering the other.
Thank you, Rami. Okay, everyone, you can get a copy of The Gift of Not Belonging using the link in the episode notes. That's our show for today. If you got something out of it, please leave us a rating or review in your podcast player. We really appreciate it. And head over to your app store to download the Next Big Idea app. It'll give you access to thousands of big ideas right in your pocket. I'm Michael Kovnat. Hope to see you tomorrow.